Chapter 26, Confrontation. Time skip Black Forest, Germany. The trees loomed around them. Frankie came down the steps and walked over to Hager. "Sir, he's holding his position north of here," she said as she raised her paper to Hager. Hager takes the paper. "Good." "General, give us a 1-mile perimeter," Reed asks as he walks over to them with his team. Hager looks over at him. "Forget it, Richards. You had your shot and you blew it." Madison stays quiet as she stays near Susan and Ben. "This is a military operation now, so jam the signal, get out of the way and let us do our jobs," Hager finishes off as he brushes past Reed. Reed turns around to face him again. "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand," Hager cuts him off as he turns back around to face Reed before continuing. "So let me make it clear for you and your pack of freaks here. I am the quarterback, you are on my team. Got it. But you never played football in high school, did you, Richards?" The insult stung the air. Madison's hands curled into fists, her eyes flashing as she took a step forward. But Reed put his hands on her shoulder to stop her and looks at her to say, "I got this," which made Madison back up a bit. "No, you are right. I did not," Reed says as he looks back over at Hager before continuing. "I stayed in and studied like a good little nerd, and 15 years later, I'm one of the greatest minds of the 21st century." He points to Susan. "I'm engaged to the hottest girl on the planet." Susan looks down. She tries to hide a smile. Reed then points to Madison. "I have a sister who would burn down hell for me, if needed." Madison's chest tightened. She blinked, stunned for a second, then a smile spread across her face. Reed finishes off, his voice steady and calm. "And the big jock who played quarterback in high school, he is standing in front of me, asking me for my help. And I say he is not gonna get a damn thing unless he does exactly what I tell him and start treating my friends and me with some respect." Hager gets in his face before looking over to Frankie. "Give him what he wants." Susan steps to Reed's side as she mutters, "I'm so hot for you right now." Madison's hands flew to her face as she groans. "Oh my God, Subug." Johnny walks over to Reed before hitting him on his shoulder. "Me too." His touch sent a ripple of power between them as their abilities swapped again. Reed gave Johnny a look. "Careful, Johnny. All right, let us go to work." Chapter 27, Protection of Susan and Madison. Time skip deep in the forest. Everyone starts to walk to their respective places. "This is it," Reed tells the team. "You have your coordinates. Set up your posts and rendezvous back here." Everyone split off, vanishing into the dense woods. With Ben. Ben switches his dial on his watch to turn into Ben again, and he starts to work on his machine until he hears a noise beside him. A brown bear growls at him, and Ben switches the dial again to turn into the thing before roaring back at the bear, making it scared and run off. "Yeah, that is right. Keep running, boo-boo." Ben yells at the bear before switching the dial back to Ben again and mutters, "Overgrown furball." Back to the other team. Reed finishes up on his machine before pressing his comms to ask, "What's your status?" Ben was the first one to reply, "Yeah, I'm good to go." "Same here," Johnny replies as he works on his machine. Madison adjusted her own panel, sparks of her energy dancing at her fingertips. "Ready to go." Susan presses on her comms to answer, "Almost there," before kneeling down. The trees start to creak, as if something is flying towards her. Susan looks up and looks at her side, and she sees the Silver Surfer flying towards her. Susan gasps to herself before pressing the comms again. "Guys, we have a problem." The Silver Surfer stops near her. Reed through the comms ask, "What's wrong?" "He's here," Susan replies. "Get out here, right now." Johnny and Madison wastes no time and runs over to where Susan is, but Madison was the first one there. Madison watches both Susan and the Silver Surfer scared. "Why are you destroying our planet?" Susan asks as her breath hitched. "I have no choice," Silver Surfer replied as his voice is low. "Sue," Reed yells as he runs towards her. "Wait," Susan yells back before looking back at the Silver Surfer. What do you mean you do not have a choice? There is always a choice. Silver Surfer shakes his head. Not always. Susan looks confused for a moment, then asks, "Why are you trying to destroy us?" "I am not the destroyer," Silver Surfer tells Susan. The Silver Surfer's gaze slid toward Madison. He had sensed her presence all along, but she had kept quiet, too frightened to draw attention to herself. Now, under the weight of his eyes, her breath caught in her chest, though she forced herself to remain standing. To Hager and Victor. Hager mutters to himself as he looks through the binoculars, "Come on, Richards. Just jam the damn signal." Maybe he needs a little persuasion, Victor tells Hager before Hager looks at him. "Fire one over the top," Hager tells one of the soldiers through a walkie-talkie. "Roger, out," the soldier replies. A tank shoots one of its missiles, straight at Susan, Reed, and Madison, and Reed notices it first. Silver Surfer flew towards Susan and Madison like he is protecting them before lifting up his board, and the board consumes the missile. Madison stumbled back from the force, shielding Susan instinctively. Her heart pounded. "He saved us." "Open fire," Hager tells one of the soldiers near him, and the soldier copies his message and yells it to the others. All the tanks shoots off their missile, and Silver Surfer flies out of the way to redirect them. "Let me," Johnny asks as he flames up. "No, wait," Reed said as he stops Johnny but does not touch him. "Reed," Ben says as his eyes open wide. "Come on, Sue," Reed mutters as Susan finally finishes her machine, and on Reed's phone, her machine lights up green. "Reed," Ben yells at Reed as Silver Surfer flies back towards them. "Got him," Reed says as he presses a button, and the machine starts to work and knocks Silver Surfer off his board. Victor loomed over the fallen surfer, his shadow long across the dirt. He chuckled darkly. "Not so tough now, are you?" Victor looks over to the board before Reed's voice snaps him out of it. "Victor, stay back." Victor turns around and looks at him as he arrives with his teammates. "You're the quarterback." The forest flooded with soldiers, swarming in with guns raised. They surrounded the team and the surfer, pushing them toward transports. Within moments, everyone was being herded into military vehicles bound for Jakutsk, Siberia. Chapter 28, Containment. Time skip, Siberia. Snow whipped across the compound. A man calls out, "Open the gate," and the sound of metallic gate open and shut. Inside the transport, Susan looks out of the window as she soldiers doing their work before looking over at Reed as Reed steps out. Before they arrive at the room, they will be locked in for a while. "But, General, we had an agreement," Reed tells Hager as Hager rubs his head. "Calm down," Hager warns Reed. "The enemy has been captured. Mission accomplished." "Where is he?" Susan asks as she leaned forward. "Contained," Hager tells Susan. Beside Susan, Madison's hands tightened on the edge of her seat. She stood halfway, glaring toward Hager through the open door of the detention room. "Contained where? Last time someone said that we nearly lost half a city," Madison says. Her voice is cold. Hager ignores her, his gaze snapping over his shoulder. "General," a man calls out, and Hager does a little smirk. "Mr. Sherman, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do," Hager tells Mr. Sherman. Reed steps forward as he says, "I want to be there for the questioning." "That's not gonna happen," Hager tells Reed before looking over to the soldier. "Please make sure our guests remain here comfortably." A man nodded. "Yes, sir." The soldier close in, gesturing for the team to remain inside. Madison crosses her arms, muttering under her breath as the door shut between them and Hager. "Yeah, comfortable. That is one word for a cage."